Welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the live stream. Sabotage. Charge all your batteries to 4.4 volts. No, don't do that. It's great to be here with you. Normally we would talk about drones, but as Captain Bryce said in the chat, build a diluted fuel complex. Yes, I haven't unlocked a diluted fuel yet. I just got to fuel. I think it tells you where I am in the game. We're talking about Satisfactory. I showed it on stream. It's what I've been taking up. I'm not going to show you guys how many hours I've played Satisfactory. Oh, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. When did I start playing Satisfactory is the question. When did I first start playing? How many? The question is not, is this an unusually large number of hours to have played Satisfactory? It's, did I do it all last month? In which case, I can't tell you the answer. Welcome to the stream, you guys. Just as we were going into the stream, by the way, we're going to answer your questions. Don't worry. We're getting them queued up. Blunty's queuing them up. You queuing them up, Blunty?
Yes. Yes, as always.
Just wanted to see if you were alive. Before we started the stream, Blunty and I were just starting to talk about our favorite topic, AI, large language models, whatever you want to call it. And I actually recorded a video. I did the thing that I'm always saying I should do this. And then one day I was like, I'm just going to do it today. And I did. Hang on. Where is it? Here we go. Why can I not see the rest of it? Why can I not scroll back further? Is there a limit to the history you can get in Gemini? I can't scroll back any further in the conversation. That's weird. See if there's anything else. If there's anything else embarrassing in my Gemini history, hang on. There we go. Okay. Strange marks on. Anyway. Apparently I can't scroll back. What does this work? Oh. Work. I don't know if I would say work. Weird. Yeah, I can't scroll back. Anyway, I was like, okay, Gemini, PID tune for me. And I gotta say, it did way better than I thought. And this links back to our conversation. One of the things that I was really skeptical of was whether whether a large language model could even interpret a black box log. Like, it doesn't know what a black box log is. Betaflight is like, if you're asking it like, hey, will you look at this Python code? It's seen a huge amount of Python code, right? So it knows how to sort of understand Python code. How many black box logs are part of its training data? Probably not that many. So, I thought, and it was, I can't show you this because I can't scroll back any further. It's kind of weird. It was like, hey, I can't read black box logs. And I was like, oh, and immediately I was impressed because, a lot of times these large language models will hallucinate that they can do things that they can't do. And they'll say, I can read a black box log. Give me your black box log. Oh, I looked at it. Oh, yes, I saw many things in this black box log. And the whole time it's just all hallucinating. But it was like, I can't read black box logs. But here, if you use this command line tool, which I was familiar with this tool already, just wanted to know that I was smarter than the AI. It's very important to me. Use this black box decode tool. It'll turn it into a CSV file, and I can read the CSV file. And so it had me upload the CSV file. And I'll say this. I don't want to spoil the video too much. It did a pretty good job. No, see, I can't believe, well, I have recordings of the whole thing. So, but but it did a pretty good job with the filters. It, like, I feel like, and I cross-checked it with PID Toolbox and Blackbox Viewer. I feel like Gemini did a pretty good job of finding the magnitude of noise and the peak frequency of the noise and helping me tweak my low-pass filter to be correct. And it made a recommendation, and this was an INAV quadcopter I was working with. I've never used RPM filters in INAV because INAV doesn't support bidirectional D-shot. And I've always been skeptical that BL Heli telemetry is fast enough and has a sufficient refresh rate to provide meaningful RPM data for the purpose of dynamic filtering. And it was like, you should really turn that on. And I was like, I don't know. And it showed me this article written by Pavel Spikowski, specifically in response to my criticism years ago. Everything old is new again. And I read it and I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I did. And it made objectively with the black box log, it made the black box log cleaner. So it was working. I was like, okay, I got to give it to you, Gemini. You did good. You objectively gave me good advice. You didn't give me any like bad advice that ran me off down a bunny trail. You just helped me. Pat on the back. And then we went to tuning the PIDs. And I have no idea what it was doing. Because like what you want to do a step response, and there's this software called PID Toolbox. I have a copy of it. I'm actually a supporter on Patreon of PID Toolbox because I just think Brian White's a good developer. He does really great work. And if you just give me a second for it to start up, any minute now. But what PID Toolbox does is it's specifically for, well, analyzing PIDs. So if I real quick just open a black box log, one of the things you can do is you can analyze the step response. And this is basically how you objectively know if your PIDs are correct, sort of. As objective as such a thing can be. And it's a very specialized tool. I just want to show you what a step response graph looks like. It's a very cool tool. Basically, it's showing when the red line is flat on this dashed line, the PID controller is working perfectly. The drone is doing exactly what the sticks tell it to do. When the red line is below this dashed line, the real drone is behind what the PID controller wants it to be doing. And so at the very beginning of the move, you can see it starts out behind because I start moving the stick and the drone is not moving yet. And the motors have to accelerate and inertia has to be overcome, right? And so we see that, as you know, this is a continuous function. This is not just one like snap turn. This is a continuous function over the whole flight. We see that it rises, it overshoots a little bit, and then it gets back and it hits the commanded rate as time passes. This is a step response graph, right? This is how you analyze PIDs. And I was like, there's no way Gemini's gonna do a step response graph. And it says, I'm going to look at set point tracking. No shit. And then I had to buy the Pro version because it couldn't handle my data on the free version. And it gave me this step response graph, which it sort of looks like a step response graph, but the time is in microseconds, not milliseconds. I'm sorry, I'm zoomed in. Thank you, Plenty. The time is in microseconds, not milliseconds. And then it showed me this, and I have, like, this doesn't look like a step. Why would the step response go down and then come back up again? This just looks like, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what, like, I have no idea what it's doing here. And it gave me some advice, and the advice was, meh. I didn't, I mean, who knows, right? And then but I let it lead me down. And then finally at the end, I raised the P gains and I got a definitive sign of excess P gain. Big oscillations. I was like, okay. And I handed it that log, and I said, what do you think of this log? And it was like, this log is great. It's wonderful. And I was like, what about the oscillations? It was like, oh, right. Those oscillations. Yeah, you should turn your P gains down. And I was like, no, I got you. So, very interesting. Whole video's coming out. I think it's going to be, it was very interesting though. But I really think it encapsulates, and Blunty, this goes back to what we were talking about. It encapsulates what we were talking about at the beginning of the live stream, which is that AI can sometimes give you really good advice. It can find things that you didn't know were there. I had another one. I was trying to do something with EdgeTX, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And my buddy sent me this AI ChatGPT instructions, and I was like, if ChatGPT got this right, I'm gonna quit my job and retire. And sure enough, the whole thing was garbage. It was just completely wrong. But it did mention one feature of EdgeTX that I had forgotten about. And I was like, oh, you're right. I do need to use that. And it helped. But so I think, Blunty, if I had to sum it up, it would be, you really have to be able to sort of filter the nuggets of truth from the BS. And if you can't do that, you can really get yourself in trouble. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, if we're talking about FPV in particular, the thing that I always say is it's only useful if you already know everything you're asking it. Like, that's what you just said. It's a feature you already knew about. It just reminded you about a thing you knew, right? But if you didn't know about it, you didn't know if it was real or hallucinated.
Right. I wouldn't have gone, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. It helped you because you said, oh, yeah, not, is that a thing? Because if you had said, is that a thing, 90% of it would have confused you and led you down wrong paths and things.
Yeah.
The problem with FPV is you can't test outputs without doing things. Yeah. Right? When you code with an LLM, it gets to spit out errors. It can make tests and do test functions and come back, right? You can look at features on a website that it hosts very quickly. It does a new build, right? When you're doing FPV, it takes much longer to iterate and figure out, are these hallucinations a real things? I say, like I've said for a long time, until they solve the hallucination problem, which is what every company is working on, it is not useful to use FPV, AI for FPV, unless you already know the answers that you're trying to get out. If you want it to help you troubleshoot when you're someone like me or you, it can be a helpful tool sometimes if you feel like dealing with it. Yeah. If you're a newer person or if you're an unexperienced person, it will just lead you down wrong paths. It will break hardware. It will make life more difficult for people like me and you who have to fix their problems later.
And I do have to say, I regularly hear from people who, ChatGPT said, erase your whole flight controller, light your drone on fire, throw it in a lake, and then that'll fix your problem. And then they did it, and then they come to me and they go, my drone doesn't work. And I'm like, well, that's an exaggeration, but it basically made it worse, not better. But I've been a little bit impressed. I've been impressed in some ways with some of the things. Like, I was amazed that it was like, yeah, cool. I'll start by doing an analysis of your filters, and I'll do a noise analysis, because these are basic mathematical functions, but that it knew that was the first step. That's pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed. I love the thing that AI does where it says, here, I'll show you. It says, this is great. Your tune is so much better. Oh my God, this is fantastic. Tracking is 99%. I don't think it could possibly know that, actually. I think that's a hallucination. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I said, do you see any signs that P term is excessive? I'm trying to throw it a bone. And it says, no, I do not. You're in the sweet spot. And I say, I got massive oscillations when coming out of a dive and small oscillations when doing a throttle pump while flying flat. Aren't these usually signs of excessive P gain? And it goes, oh, actually I do see some oscillations. How did I miss this? Oh my goodness gracious, yes. But then it suggested I add TPA, which is actually a pretty good recommendation. So like, I feel like it's better than I thought it was going to be, but it's still like, it would have left me with P gains that were objectively too high and were making my quad do bad things and could have caused problems for me. So anyway, well, I think these days I use it like a like a slightly more conversational search engine. Like sometimes I don't quite know what search term to use. And if I try to search, I just kind of end up with a bunch of dead ends. But if I type it into Gemini, then it does a better job. Anyway, interesting conversation to start off the stream. I do not, by the way, I do not use AI for anything personal. Like sometimes I feel like, my wife doesn't love me, and I'm really afraid of clowns, and it's just like writing it down and sending it off to the CIA or something. No, you're not gonna. I'm sure they have all that data anyway, but I only use it for anyway. Anyway, can you make pictures of naked clowns? No reason. Notice FPV says, I constantly tell ChatGPT to stop being overly nice and agreeable. I tried to do that with Gemini once, and it would be like, since you told me not to be overly nice and agreeable, I'll just get to the point. I'm like, no, stop it. Just give me the freaking answer. Anyway, let's get on with the stream. That was FPV related content. Let's get on with the stream. We're going to take questions. Mubshot wants to know, what are the chances of getting an interview with the drone builders or pilots in Milan at the Olympics? Would love to get some specs and details for the track and downhill builds. I do think there's some content out there showing their drone and talking about it. I could probably, I bet if I tried, I would get an interview with them. That's the Dutch Drone Gods, isn't it? Someone told me it was the Dutch Drone Gods. I'm sure there's more pilots than just them, but yeah, amazing footage coming out of the Olympics. I hope those guys are just world-class pilots, and deserve all of the acclaim that they're getting. So, Colton wants to know, I crashed my drone and the balance lead broke and went up in flames. Do you think the drone is okay? What should I do next? Yes, probably the drone is okay, assuming it might have some scorch marks on it, but as long as the battery didn't literally light on fire and melt parts of the drone, the battery is probably toast, but the drone is probably fine. Is there a way I can reuse the cells, or should I toss them? See, here's the thing. It depends on how up in flames is, okay? I've had batteries where the balance lead got chopped and it sparked a little bit, and then, the battery was basically fine. I can't judge that for you, especially now as I can't even see the battery. But you have to decide whether it's just a little bit of superficial damage to the balance lead, in which case repairing the balance lead and the battery's good as new, or whether there's actual damage to the cells. And you want to be very cautious when you do that. Don't look at it and go, it's probably fine, and then have it burn your house down. Would you run a Secure E70 G2 70 amp 4-to 8 stack on 8S with 2808 1950 kV motors, or is that pushing it? That is wildly pushing it. I am assuming you mean 5-inch props, but if you mean bigger than 5-inch props, then this answer gets even more, I'm even more right. On 5-inch props with 8S, a good KV is about 1500 kV, 1500 to maybe 1600 kV. So 1950 kV, that's a relatively high kV even for 6S. On 8S, that is a ridiculously high kV. You would want to run that with something like a 65% motor output limit if you wanted to do it at all.
And then you say 2808
that's probably 7-inch,
right?
That's probably a 2808 motor is canonically a 7-inch prop. At which point that 1950 kV, you can run 6S 1950 on a 7-inch prop. A good motor will handle that. You won't have very long flight times, but it'll be like an acro ripper. I've seen people fly 7-inch on a 1900 kV motor. It's not a cruiser, but it's a fun drone to fly. But no, not on 8S. That's going to be ridiculous. So, yeah, I would say that's not a good idea, not because of anything about the Secure stack, but just because ADAS 1950 kV, like on a 3-inch, I don't know, I'm just like, if 1500 kV is right for a 5-inch prop, then higher kV would be right for smaller props. So like, but nobody's going to run like ADAS 3-inch props, and certainly not on a 2808. We got a post in the Discord from Mo. I don't know why it's an MOV file that he uploaded. Is this a virus? Hang on. Let me put this on. Let's watch what Mo posted. Every so often, you get to see an amazing pilot. Little huck over the top. Okay. Little power loop. Back through. Yeah. This guy's okay. Oh, that's the first move. Okay. I was going to say, that's the first move where I went, oh, I probably would have busted that up. Yeah, that was nice. Let's see that again. Just the Matty back in. Like, this is a half Matty, technically. That's smooth. Clean. So clean. And then a little, I guess I would call that a Vanny roll. And then another Matty, except look at the altitude control. His first one is high and basically rewinds the original move. High and back down and around. His second one is much closer to the ground. And the timing and the sort of sixth sense of your altitude and your spatial positioning to get that right is very impressive. It made it look like a Matty, but it really just kind of turned over and went backwards. Very cool. Back again. Oh, okay. Matty. This guy. Oh, into a trippy spin. Beautiful. Oh, little tap there. Never let. Oh, broken prop. Okay. Nice. Never let somebody tell you a parking lot is boring and can't make good freestyle. Very nice. I like it a lot. Hey everybody, hope y'all are well. Does anybody know why the P1 system immediately drops to 16 meg and doesn't stay at 21? Any fixes? Thanks. I don't, and I'm not even, so the first thing I would tell you is the bit rate setting in the P1 goggles is only for the DVR. The bit rate of the actual wireless link, the video link, is completely dynamic and you have no control over it. So, maybe it was never supposed to be at 21 in the first place. But the bottom line is that the P1 system is trying to figure out what bit rate it needs to be at. And it's just doing what it needs to do. It's very, very new. So, what's a good place to rent out for Tinywh racing? The Duke FPV wants to know. Listen, isn't one of the advantages of Tinywh racing that you can do it just anywhere? I'm sorry, Whoop racing. Whoop racing. I'm trying to break myself. Tinywh is a registered trademark, and you have to actually pay a licensing fee to say the word Tinywh. That's not true. That's a joke. I made that up. But it is a registered trademark, and sometimes the owner of the trademark gets a little hostile. So I've tried not to say Tinywh anymore because TM.
It's a trademark that is dead and has lapsed, I will just say.
Well, it has lapsed, but the holder of the trademark was a little bit of a jerk, and he thought he wasn't. Anyway, I'm not going to rehash it. He thought he was being nice, but basically he was saying, stop using my trademark, unless you're referring to me specifically. And I kind of thought it was a dick move. And then it turned out, as Blunty says, he doesn't even hold the trademark anymore because it lapsed, which is probably why he was being hostile about it. And then, so even if I'm not violating his trademark, I'm still giving him free advertising. And when he said, stop using my trademark, I was like, yes, sir, can do. So anyway, Whoop racing. Where would you rent for Whoop racing? And I was going to say, isn't one of the advantages of Whoop racing that you could do it just about anywhere? So I have had a fantastic time. There is a local chicken wing and restaurant and bar. The picture a big wooden decorated, dining room with a stage in the corner. and some, redneck band playing on the stage in the corner, and people all sitting around, drinking drinks and having chicken wings and burgers. And there's a patio outside with a bar on the patio. I'm really playing up the bar aspect. It wasn't as drunkenly as it sounds, but just a fun, friendly. Your kids are there. It's okay, even though there's a bar, they're allowed. The family's there. So there's a whole bunch of people there who had nothing to do with the event. Basically, a local guy went and asked the manager, "Hey, I'll bring in 25 or more people if you let us have the patio and let us fly our drones around." So we set up a whoop course, a race course out on the patio, and we did a race. We were there for like 3 or 4 hours, had a great time, had some food, had some drinks, made some money for the place. There's another place that this same guy, he was so good at rounding up spots. They had a back room. They had he was a carpenter, and he had done some of the woodwork on the stage of their back room. And, it was just sitting empty most of the time. He said, "Look, we're not going to rent it out, but if you just let us come on the weekend when you're not using it anyway, you'll sell some food." And so they did. We set it up. We had a race there. So, great point from Sunshine, who says, "Where I live, there's a couple of school districts. And if you live in the school district, whether you have kids or not, you can rent the gymnasium for 4 hours for like $25, otherwise free. What do you mean? Got to pay janitorial fees, $25, otherwise free." Yes. Excuse me. We often race here in Knoxville at a local high school. One of the people who does the races, I think, used to go to the high school. Maybe, I don't know what his connection is. Maybe he does like STEM stuff I don't know. But yeah. So those are some options. But don't spend too much money, because at the end of the day, you can whoop race just about. I've had whoop races in somebody's house. Everybody just showed up, sat around their living room and raced. You just don't need that much. Is it worth it to get an expensive ImmersionRC meter, or worth exploring the AliExpress one? I don't know. What's the AliExpress one? First of all, the ImmersionRC power meter, I assume that it is still officially in production, but it goes long stretches of being sold out. That's just how ImmersionRC seems to operate. I remember there was a huge stretch of time when you couldn't get their lap timing system, and then they made a batch, and so everything in FPV sold out all the time. But I'm not sure how often this comes back into stock. But it could. I don't know. The other thing is, it's gone up from, it used to be $100, now it's almost $200. So that's just the way of the world. But what is this RF power meter from AliExpress? I'm not familiar with this. Oh, wow, $9. Well, frick, for $9, I'd give it a go. How much worse could it be? Right? The ImmersionRC RF power meter is calibrated. It's not a sophisticated device. It's not a lab quality device. But it's I did a long time ago, somebody tested it, and I don't remember the exact numbers. And of course, the numbers varied depending on the frequency you were measuring, and also they would vary unit to unit. But it was within a dB or two, which is it's enough to say, one of the ways I use it is when I changed my power on my VTX table, did the video transmitter actually change power? Am I actually at the maximum power? And I'll hook it up, and I'll just I don't need absolute precision for that. This device here looks to be one of the, I think I know the technology that this uses to measure the power. And I think it is similar in terms of not that accurate, but enough to get you in the ballpark. And it's $9 for $190. I know which one I would buy, right? Obviously for $9, I would buy 2 or 3 of them and see if they worked for me. Yeah, based on the AD80 the logarithmic detector chip operates. Yeah. Let's see what the input power. Max RF input power is 5 dBm. That's not that much, so that's a problem. That's a definite problem. So the ImmersionRC power meter goes up to 30 dBm. That's 1 watt. This thing maxes out at 5 dBm. It's not very useful. It's not useful for FPV measurements. And you could say, well, I could just get an attenuator. But by the time you put a 30 dB attenuator on a 2 watt transmitter and whatever you would need to do to bring it down to 5 dBm, like you got a lot of attenuation. I'm not sure that you're going to get good results. So that would be a deal breaker for me. Yeah, 5 dBm is how many milliwatts? Not very many. 1 dBm is 1 milliwatt, so 3 dBm is 2 milliwatts. So 6 dBm is 4 milliwatts. So basically, even a 25 milliwatt video transmitter would be too powerful for this. So I guess what you could do is you could hook it up to an antenna, but now you're not measuring the power coming off the VTX. So yeah, no, that's not useful for measuring power straight off of VTX. We got any others? I don't know. Frequency meter. Yeah. See, I think those all are going to be like low power. 10 dBm. See, not that much. Yeah, so the ImmersionRC power meter wins on that one for sure. All right. Let's talk about this topic Sunshine is talking about in the chat. See if I can find a reference for this. There was a statement about it. Yeah, here we go. The FAA has traditionally... No. That's the wrong one. Come on now. It's 1 week old. Okay. The FAA has traditionally focused on education. When you hear about pilots getting hit with massive fines, it is... the knee-jerk reaction is these FAA dudes are jerks, so they're just coming after the common man, trying to slap him down and make money for the government. But like when you actually dig into the stories, almost always these cases with massive fines, like I'm thinking of Philly Mikey and his whatever 6-figure fines, they only happen after a long period of the FAA going, hey, you shouldn't do that. And you just keep doing it. And they're like, hey, don't do that. And you just keep doing it. And they're like, okay, you shouldn't do that. We're going to fine you. And then eventually, after years of ignoring them and thumbing your nose and, repeated willful violations, however you want to put it, then finally they're like, fine, and they bring the hammer down. My point is the FAA has traditionally, and this has been an explicit policy, focused on education first. There are cases where pilots FAA reached out and said, hey, did you know that what you did was in violation of the rules? Yeah, it's good. Don't worry about it. Would you mind making a video talking about what you did and how it broke the rules and just help educate people as to what the rules are? Well, those were the kinder, gentler days of the weak and impotent administrations that came before the strong, powerful administration we currently find ourselves burdened with. And now the FAA has said, we're no more Mr. Nice Guy. I can't find the actual FAA. If I had planned to do this, I would have looked it up before the stream. So now we'll look at this MSN, this MSN document. But basically, the FAA is switching from education to enforcement. And there's been, I think it was an executive order. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Here we go. Is this it? Aero News Network. It basically requires the FAA to refer violations to the Justice Department. It's no longer discretionary, at least on paper, that if the FAA has a violation where the drone operation endangers the public, violates airspace restrictions, or are conducted in furtherance of another crime. These are the key things. Endanger the public, violate airspace restrictions, or are conducted in furtherance of another crime. That the FAA is now, like, as a matter of policy, obligated to refer those things to the Department of Justice for prosecution. So, you know, keep that in mind. Someone was talking and the reason this came up is someone was talking about flying near a certain national monument, a certain monument, you know, a certain tourist spot in the world. And someone was like, you know, well, you might think, well, maybe I'll do it and I'll just get away with it. Maybe, I don't know, like a little bit of a cavalier attitude. And you should know that, like, if you violate the rules, some rules, like obviously violate airspace restrictions is pretty cut and dried. Conducted in furtherance of another crime is somewhat cut and dried, I suppose. And then endanger the public is a matter of, like, that seems like it's got some wiggle room for them to decide to mess with you if they just feel like it. Like, oh, you flew your little 5-inch drone near the Statue of Liberty. You endangered the public. I don't know. Right? Well, that would be an airspace restriction too. It's not just that the FAA, and I've always said, if the FAA does not hand down criminal state sentences, the FAA gives fines, civil infractions. But by the time you get referred to the Department of Justice, that's potentially a criminal thing. That's what the DOJ does. So just sort of upping the stakes a little bit. And I figured you should know that is... that's out there. Yeah. Anyway. My thought about this is the FAA has never had the resources to prosecute all of the violations that they potentially could. So now that they're referring to the DOJ, is the DOJ like they don't have anything to do? I don't know. But if you have, like, sort of, you've been like, well, I break the rules, but someone's going to clip this and it's going to sound like I said it. If you're a person who has said it's okay to break the rules because what are the chances of getting caught anyway, and the FAA doesn't have the resources to actually go after you. So as long as you're not the tippy top of the visibility pile, then what are the chances that anything will happen to you? Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think the DOJ is kind of busy right now. Aren't they allowing local law enforcement to enforce these rules? No. Local law enforcement cannot enforce FAA rules. Only the FAA can do that. But what they have been doing is educating local law enforcement about the rules so that local law enforcement can refer people to the FAA for prosecution. Okay? So, you know, your local beat cop walks up and you're flying in violation of some rules because he sat in on a Zoom call where the FAA said, here are the things that pilots aren't allowed to do. He knows that you're violating the rules and he says, hey, come here, buddy. And he gets your information and then he sends that information to the FAA. That's what the FAA has been doing. Local cops can't enforce FAA rules, but they can say, stop flying your drone and get out of here. And maybe there's some law that they're enforcing, but it's not an FAA regulation. What article did you post above, Sunshine? GAO is all over the FAA. I almost feel bad for the FAA. The FAA has been like the boogeyman for so long, and now it looks like the administration is like, do this, do that. What about drones? And the FAA is like, but then I don't feel bad for them because they've had a decade to get their shit together, and they haven't. They have treated drones like the redheaded stepchild of the aviation family with just terrible, terrible plans for integrating drones into the national airspace. I realize it's a big job, but so now that they're getting a little bit of pressure put on them, unfortunately, they'll probably just do more dumb things that make life worse for us. Anyway.
All right. Would you like me to summarize this?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely. Okay. Wait, can I get AI to... Hang on. I'm going to ask Gemini to summarize it, and then I'm going to let you summarize it, and we're going to see... We're going to see... Go ahead. You summarize it. Here, I'll take this off screen. Go ahead.
This is really easy to summarize, okay? Basically, hey, we know remote ID sucks, right? We've talked about this for years. Remote ID makes no sense. It's super short range. It doesn't even work with some phones, right? It's like, it doesn't even require you to connect to anything, right? Remote ID sucks. It doesn't make any sense as a thing. Real planes use something called ADSB, okay? So here's the question. If you want to detect and avoid drones and planes, what do you use?
ADSB. Except remote ID explicitly prohibited drones from using ADSB because they were worried that we would overwhelm the ADSB network.
Right. Pretend you're not going to overwhelm the ADSB network and pretend like what they wrote doesn't exist. And now the question is, you have remote ID and you have ADSB. What do you use? Are you forcing all drones to use current ADSB products? Do you develop a new ADSB standard to change the weight and requirements of ADSB?
Yeah, because
do you change ADSB to have a short or long-range ADSB?
Yeah, ADSB wouldn't work on smaller drones, right?
Also, the question is, what's the deconfliction time requirement, right? Also, what's the requirement for additional things you need to broadcast, and does it fit in the ADSB response, right? These are all things that are issues. Right. And so this write-up from the GAO is like, look, neither of these solutions work, so you either need to tell us why one's going to work and make it work, or come up with a new solution. We've asked you to do this for years.
Oh, my God. I fully support... Oh, my God, I fully support this. That's amazing. Yes, that's one of the complaints of many that we had with remote ID, which is like, now you've got two incompatible systems, remote ID and ADSB. You've just created this parallel system that kind of doesn't really work. Like, remote ID isn't good for avoiding collisions between aircraft because the range isn't sufficient, for example. But they didn't want you to use ADSB because they worry about overwhelming the ADSB receivers with all these drones. So you're saying the GAO was basically like, do your frickin' job, FAA.
Yes, the FAA keeps getting work groups together and producing documents that are like, yeah, we kind of need to do something, and then doesn't actually do anything. And the GAO's like, look, you got to do something because we need to figure out a way to detect and avoid because you're already allowing all these drones to fly all over the place. You're carving out all these holes for drones and you're doing all these things for drones, and like, how do planes deconflict? You're creating more bubbles and you're creating more rules. You're trying to get bigger things to fly in the air. You need to figure out deconfliction and detect and avoid. It has to happen. And that's basically what they're saying.
The
problem is...
I mean, that's good. Although, go ahead. Yeah, the problem is that they're going to just be like, great, hobby drones, fuck off. Right?
Right, exactly. The problem is the solution to this could come with, now you belong in a FRIA only, unless you have a giant ADSB responder that is fine for a delivery drone, but not fine for a user drone, right?
Somehow so it always works out bad for us.
Now, look, people ask what we've done at the FPVFC for all these years. Well, one of the things we've been doing is sitting in these meetings. Every time they have these meetings about these standards and trying to get people to discuss standards. There were requests for comment recently about things like this, and we submitted a whole set of responses in reply to, like, you need a solution. Basically, we said this to the FAA, the same statement. Like, look, you got to find a solution so we can have detect and avoid, and here's what we want out of it. Something we can put on drones. We want shielded operate, like all these other things, right? Like, Anyway, this is what's happening. The GAO is like, you got to figure out detect and avoid. And the FAA is like, we don't really know what to do. And they've been waffling for a long time. I think the problem is that there's no on-the-book standard that is a meeting of these two together. So they're either going to hamstring ADSB into everything and say that it's okay, or they're going to do some kind of like local deconfliction and major deconfliction. You have to have like 2 devices, or like, right? Like they're going to have to come up with some solution. So the question is, what is the solution that they will come up with? Can someone come in and save them? Will it be a giant organization that charges you a lot of money and you can't afford their transponder for, right? There's all these questions that are involved in this. I don't know any of the answers to that, and we've been trying to deal with that for a year. But hopefully that gives you a little more clarity into, I say clarity, but it helps you understand what this is about.
All right, I appreciate that. Let's see how close Gemini got to summarizing the document to what you just did. It examines the FAA's efforts to integrate the growing number of drones into the national airspace system, specifically focusing on technologies that allow drones to detect and avoid manned aircraft. While drone operators currently rely on waivers and ADSB, that's not true. Drone operators don't rely on ADSB. Well, ADSB in, I guess, to detect airplanes, but cameras, acoustic sensors, and ground radar to fly beyond VLOS. Is that accurate? Maybe. Stakeholders note that ADSB has limitations. Yes, that seems consistent with what you were saying, Blunty. The FAA envisions a future information-centric national airspace, but the GAO found that the agency lacks specific actions, clear roles, technical milestones, or cost estimates to realize its capability. That's very consistent with what you said, Blunty. Consequently, the GAO recommends the FAA administrator develop and implement specific plans, yada, yada, yada. That sounds...
So basically, this is like, hey, we told you to do this already. You worked on doing this already. Can you please do this thing you said you were going to do? So now it's going to be 5 more years of work groups. But the problem is...
Yeah, because I noticed
that... delivery drones.
Yeah.
The problem is they want all these delivery drones and they want air taxis and they want like all these things, right? So they're going to either have to just like bandage ADSB onto them for a while until they figure something out, right? Or they have to come up with something faster than the normal 3 to 5 year timeline that goes through all these work groups and stuff. Like, I still don't know that there is a proposed solution that's other than ADSB and remote ID, which is part of what this GAO document discusses. You know?
Yeah. I love that. I love that the GAO says, you've had years and years and you haven't done this thing. You lack specific actions, clear roles, technical milestones, or cost estimates. Therefore, we recommend that you do that.
Yep.
Okay. So like they're basically just going to keep not doing it, right?
Yeah, they wrote a strongly worded letter to the FAA. That's what happened.
Great. I'm sure the FAA was like, "Oh, guys, we got to get to work. I'm sorry all this time. We thought we didn't know."
By the way, it's 44 pages long. So there's a lot, and it's basically detailing what I said in a bunch of steps and a bunch of waves and a bunch of like technical details and why. I don't know. I spent some time trying to dig up studies about ADS. I spent up some time trying to dig up study because we discussed this in the FPVFC before this because we sort of this is all obvious to all of us because this has to be figured out, right? And it's hard to find good information, but there have been testing where I believe somewhere in Europe, maybe France, they've started allowing ADSB as deconfliction on drones already. Mm-hmm. Like they're just letting drones use ADSB modules, and that's very new. But it seems like they're convinced with the data they've been able to gather that it will work. The problem is when you're think of like Chicago O'Hare, right? Or like some really crazy airport, and you have what might be drones in the area. You might have all these planes in the area. The question is, will ADSB actually get overloaded? Like the question is if it takes me 10 seconds to see a location, that might not be fast enough if the plane's moving at 500 miles an hour versus the drone, right? Like that sort of thing is what is the question. Like how often can you get those packets in, and how much room is there really? So
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you have eventually the spectrum gets spammed, right?
Right. Yeah. It's I don't know. There have been studies about it though. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. It's not a solved problem yet, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Josh Fisk says, why not ingest telemetry and combine a monitor ADSB for collision detection? Yeah, you're talking about ADSB in. ADSB in is where you just listen for other people's ADSB packets, but so that you can try to avoid them, but they don't know where you are.
So just to be clear, one of the issues with that is what you're describing is a system on top of ADSB, right? And so if you mandate a system like that, there has to be like a organization that has done a write-up, a technical write-up, and it has to be like an approved document that the government can adopt. Like it can't just be like, hey, we could do this. Like some company has to go do all of the steps, vet all the hardware, write up a technical document about how it would work, denote all the specs and the travel time and all the things that have to happen in a spec like that. Like ADSB is written up, right? And then it has to be approved, and then that would have to be accepted by them, right? And so that's like the whole issue I'm sort of describing, is that right now the only two things we have written up are the ASTM remote ID standard and the ASTM or whoever did the ADSB standard, right? So we need a new ASTM standard that covers this other piece, because they want detect and avoid between craft. They don't want you talk to the ground and the ground talks back, right? They want you need to be able to talk in the air if nobody on the ground can see anybody. That's what they want to be guaranteed of.
It's funny because so much work and money was put into writing the remote ID standard for something that is of questionable utility, I would say. So now we have, but hey, there it is. And it kind of makes me laugh that somebody would be like, well, I guess we're going to use remote ID going forward because, I mean, it exists, Anyway. All right. Fatal helicopter crash ignites criticism of slacklining oversight. I am not going to click on this article because I'm going to go back to answering questions. I'm going to do some super chats. We actually have a couple super chats. But the idea that a helicopter interacted with a slackline is both amusing and horrific. I see a lot in tuning articles about hot motors. Asks Mark Tay 21. Thank you for $5, Mark. What causes hot or burnt motors? Too much current, relative lack of cooling, etc. Here's why motors get hot when your PIDs are bad. I want you to think about friction, okay? Because when we talk about electricity, sometimes electricity can be kind of hard to intuitively understand. And so we're going to make physical analogies that we're very familiar with, even though we have to acknowledge that the analogy isn't perfect. So if I push my hands together and I start rubbing, right? And I'll always think of Karate Kid, right? When I do this, right? I'm going to generate heat. Friction generates heat, right? And if you think about it, it's because I have two things that are moving in opposition to each other that I generate the heat. If I were to put my hand on something and I push it and it just rolls, no heat would be generated. But when I put my hand on a surface and it slides, right, I generate heat. Now I want you to think about a motor. Through the magic of physics, I'm going to push electrical current through the motor, and that will make the motor want to spin. Okay? If I push electrical current through the motor and the motor spins, basically all of the electrical energy I'm pushing through the motor gets turned into kinetic energy. It gets turned into torque and the motor spins and the motor stays cool. But when I push electrical current through a motor and the motor doesn't spin, that energy has to go somewhere. It doesn't get turned into kinetic energy. And so it just turns into heat. And if you know a lot about physics, you might be able to point to flaws in what I said, but like we're keeping it real high level. We're trying to keep it conceptual. So for example, if you take a motor and you just grab it with your fist and don't let it spin, and then you crank the throttle, it's just going to pump current through the coil. The wires are going to get hot. They're going to heat up and they're going to melt. But when you have bad PIDs, the motor is still spinning. So where's the heat come from? And the answer is that imagine you have the ESC is like making the motor spin at this speed, and the motor is spinning at that speed. So the motor's doing exactly what it's being asked to do. Very little heat build, less heat buildup. But if the flight controller is saying to the motor, go like this, up, down, 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 right? The motor can't accelerate that fast because it has mass, and mass has inertia, and inertia resists changes in velocity. So if the flight controller is sending this high frequency signal that is faster than the motor can speed up and slow down, the motor will just be spinning at a given speed, the average speed of the high frequency signal. But there'll be a lot of friction inside the motor as the current is going back and forth, and that'll cause heat buildup. So basically, how do bad PIDs cause hot motors? Specifically the D term and gyro filtering being insufficient. When gyro filtering is insufficient, high frequency noise gets into the PID loop. The PID loop is sensing the gyro and responding to it. That high frequency noise is supposed to be filtered out. If you don't have adequate filtering, the high frequency noise is picked up by the PID loop, and then the D term specifically amplifies high frequency noise. That's not the D term's primary job, but that is an effect of what the D term does. So the D term will feed that noise back out to the motors, and you'll have these high frequency components to your motor signal that then the motors can't respond to, and the motors will get hot. And I hope that worked for you. Alex Brain asks, hi JB, looking at getting into Walksnail. Don't have the budget for a DJI kit. Is it still worth it today? And should I get the GT or the Pro kit? If I bought Walksnail today, I would buy the GT video transmitter and I would put the Pro camera on it. That's what I would do. The Pro camera is fantastic, but I feel like Walksnail needs all the help it can get in terms of output power, and the 2 watts of the GT gives you just that little bit more range and penetration compared to the standard VTX. That's what I would do. Here's a question from Chance the Raptor. I'm looking for a drone that I can fly outside in my neighborhood in the US with no HOA. I have analog goggles. What bind and fly or type of drone would you pick? If you're in a neighborhood, I'm going to guess that you might encounter pedestrians or cars or pets. So I'm going to recommend something that is just that little bit smaller or safer should you have an accident. I'm not going to recommend an open prop 5-inch. I would say a 3-inch at the biggest, maybe a 2-inch is even better. I would volunteer to have somebody smack me with a 2-inch drone. And as long as I kind of like maybe had a set of eye protection on, I probably would feel okay with it. So I think something smaller, a 2-inch or 3-inch, you don't necessarily need closed props. Excuse me. Oh, gracious. That's probably what I would have you do. Caillou Mini 2.5 inch. Yeah. We just talked about that on the live stream yesterday. Caillou Mini. I'd like to show people how to spell things. Just, it's a little 2.5 inch frame. It's a fun little drone. Yeah. I should build a drone. I haven't built a drone in a while. I mean, for myself. John Bergen says, I got into FPV recently. I started building your 5-inch from GetFPV. I'm having problems getting the board too hot before the pad melts the solder. Do I need a hotter iron temperature? No, probably not, John. The thing is, it feels to me like you're not getting good heat transfer between the iron and the board. At that point, if you raise the temperature of the iron, I don't think you're going to make the situation better. You're just going to increase the peak temperature of the board and make it more likely that you damage the board. I feel like potentially you either have like you have a bad soldering iron potentially. Like, I don't know, if your temperature is like ridiculously low, if your temperature is at 650, 675 degrees Fahrenheit, then maybe turn it up to like 750, 725. But if you're already at 700, 750 Fahrenheit, and I'm just talking Fahrenheit today because, whatever, I just felt like Fahrenheit, then I wouldn't turn it up any higher. I would want to look at your tip of your iron and make sure it is sized appropriately for the pads you're trying to solder. I would want to make sure you were using leaded 6040 or 6337 alloy solder. Make sure you're using flux. Make sure your tip is clean and shiny. All of these things are things that can prevent heat transfer into the board. And you might say, well, but the board is overheating. The board is getting too hot. So I'm getting heat transfer. The thing is, you need localized heat transfer. You need to heat the pad hot enough to take the solder before you make the rest of the board hot. So if you're getting poor heat transfer, eventually you will heat the board up. But you won't make the pad hot enough to take the solder. John Bergen says, I have a really cheap iron and I'm looking for a better one. Haha. Well, I just did a video. I'm gonna proselytize for this iron. I'm such a fan of this iron. The Sugon T21.
How much difference does your soldering iron make?
Oh, Bardwell. The Sugon T21 is a fantastic iron for $100. It is a Chinese copy of a $600 soldering iron, and it uses some of the same technology as the iron. Well, probably copies it. And it's just really fantastic heat delivery.
Here's a 12 gauge wire. This is the biggest wire commonly used on drones up to, really big ones. I mean, somewhere, let's just...
Yeah, here.
It works.
Boom.
There we go. She's taking...
Heat that sucker right up.
Solder.
Yeah.
And there we go. That is a nice...
Anyway, so if you're looking to spend money on an iron, John, the Sugon T21, if you don't get good results with that, it's not the iron, it's you. Let's see here. I turned on my DJI O4 Lite for 2 to 3 minutes without antenna. Is my O4 Lite damaged? No. The O4 is protected. All DJI video transmitters are protected from damage from running without the antenna. No damage has been done. Everything is fine. Is there a way that a LiPo explodes even though the drone was flying okay and voltage when landing was 3.4 volts? I mean, it sounds like that happened to you, so I'm going to go with yes, there is a way. Why did it happen to you? I couldn't possibly guess. Sorry that happened. What can I do to convert the Meteor 75 Pro to a true 75mm and fly more zippy? Like which motor or frame combo? This is usually a bad idea. The Pro P1, that one is designed. So what I would do in this case is I would compare it to the one you want to build. This is the one you have, is the Pro P1. It's got 35mm props. It's bigger and heavier. Like, to some degree, you're only going to get so close to what you're going for. That's the old one. Meteor 75 Pro. Meteor 75 Pro brushless quadcopter. There we go. You know? Like, I would probably just, you know, steal the frame and motors off of this one. You're like, what props and motors and frames should I use to make my quad fly like this? I don't know. Whatever this one has. Right? Is that too obvious? Am I overlooking something? It's got the same flight controller? I don't think it does. Matrix 1S 3-in-1 HD. Oh, so no, you're boned. I'm getting big deja vu. Blunty, have we answered this exact question? Because I'm remembering that this flight controller doesn't have an OSD chip on it, and therefore it cannot be used with analog. Yeah, but if you're assuming you're keeping the P1 video system, then the question is, can the flight controller fit? And I bet it does on the frame. Fit on the frame. 1102, 22,000. Oh, it's the exact same motors. My dude, it's the exact same motors. 1102, 22,000 kV. All you would do is get a smaller frame and put smaller props on it. But here's the thing. What's the weight of these two drones? Weight, 37.5 grams. 30.5. Okay, so here's your problem. This is why the P1 has bigger props. It is a full 7.5 grams more. That's a third more weight than the 75 Pro analog. Okay? It's massively more heavy. If you put the same props on this drone that you would wear on this, that you would run on this one, it will fly. It will not be zippy and like it. You can't make up for that much weight. Okay. All right. So I would discourage you from trying to do what you're proposing. You already have the exact same motors that the smaller one has. The reason they gave you the bigger props is because of this additional weight. And ultimately, you're not going to make a bigger, heavier aircraft fly like a smaller, lighter one without removing weight. What size drone would you recommend if I want to attach something like a gripper and I also wanted to have a flight time of at least 10 minutes? I mean, it depends on how heavy the thing you want to grip is. Right? How heavy, how much weight do you want to lift? Without knowing the answer, it's impossible to tell you. If you're, yeah. You know, 500 grams, a 5-inch might carry 500 grams to maybe a kilogram. You know, 1 to 2 kilograms. Well, 1 kilogram, maybe around a 7-inch. 2 kilograms, maybe more like a 10-inch. It just depends. 300 to 500 grams, I think you could do that on a 5-inch without too much trouble. If you're going for a 7-inch, would be surefire. What are you gripping? What kind of project? What kind of project is it? Where do you live right now? Ukraine, no reason. There's a list of countries in the world right now. Like when a hobbyist from Canada, when a hobbyist from Germany is like, Mr. Bardwell, I wanna build a drone. I'm like, yeah, cool. There's a list of countries right now where when I get drone related questions from someone in those countries, I have to like be like, right? Singapore is good to go. Nobody's up to nothing in Singapore. I once got a message from a person who wanted help building a drone to, quote, fly through prohibited area while carrying so many pounds of cargo. And I was like, nope. And I just deleted his I literally just deleted his message. Like, that's way too sketchy. I didn't even reply. And I joked about it on Facebook. I was like, haha, this guy wants me to fly a drone through prohibited area. Like, my dude, you're going to have to be sneakier than that. Lol, lol, lol. And then like 2 years later, I got a call from the FBI. And they said, hi, I'm Agent so-and-so. And I've been tasked with this message. And if you have any information about the person who sent you this message, we would like it if you would give it to us. And I was like, it's gone, Mike. I literally deleted the message and blocked the account. I had nothing to give him, so that was the end of that. But anyway, I do in fact believe it was the FBI who was calling me. Ciati says, I used to get $2,000 to $3,000 requests to, quote, deliver cargo to prisons per week. I mean, that seems like a good deal, Ciati. How many times did you do it? Yeah, that's the thing.
Zero, of course.
Zero, of course. I don't know. The problem is, I think the problem, if it was a dropper, see, I wouldn't assume that you would get the drone back. So if you're going to give me $3,000, this is all hypothetical, of course. If you're going to give me $3,000 to fly some contraband into a prison, I'm going to assume I'm going to lose the drone. So like immediately that's off the top of my payday, right? I don't think that's enough money. Because, like, probably it's going to be somewhat of a heavy package. It's not just going to be like a pack of cigarettes and a cell phone. It's going to be presumably like, so like you're going to need to carry a couple pounds, I would guess. So like you're talking about a 7-inch or 10-inch drone, or I guess it could be a DJI drone. But I mean, you could easily spend $700 to $1,000 on the drone. And that's coming out of your $2,000 to $3,000 payday. So now you're only making a couple grand. I don't think that's a good deal, considering how much trouble you'll get into if you get caught. And then the way they're going to catch you, well, I mean, there's a chance that if you're a dumbass, then you're just going to park outside the prison and try and fly it over the wall, and they're going to like get you on camera and stuff, or they're going to just walk right up to you. That's only if you're a dumbass. I feel like it should be possible to accomplish that from far enough away that there's not much chance anybody would ever find you. I think it would be easy to do from 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, no problem. And, because like if you think about it, like you could just hover and then, land autonomously. You have a little downward facing camera. You line up on wherever your courtyard and you just auto land, right?
Yeah, that could never go wrong.
Oh, well, I mean, there's always the odds of something going wrong.
Can you imagine auto landing like on top of a guard or something?
Well, I have a feeling the people flying contraband into a prison aren't like too concerned about the security of the guard. They're like, oh no, I injured a guard. What will I do?
No. I mean, the guard's gonna find the fucking drone, is what I mean. Like, obviously.
Well, that's the thing.
If you manually piloted it, you could not land on the guard.
I guarantee. That's the other thing is I guarantee you they have security systems that detect drones. Like these systems exist. They detect some of them have microphones and they detect the signature of the motors. Some of them have RF detectors, although if you're a DJI drone, then they're immediately going to pick you up. If you're not a DJI drone, it may be harder for them to pick you up. And then if you were to build it with a 3.3 gigahertz video, and I don't know what you would use for the control link. That's a tougher one. But like you would use off frequency video probably. And then like if you fly it in, what you could do is you could set it so that when it fail safes, it auto lands. And then you could just sort of manually fly it in until it fail safes because you're 3 kilometers away, so you don't get caught. Then your issue is if they recover the drone, there are fingerprints on it. There's so like you'd have to like build it in a clean room.
I suspect you'd be dropping a thing off of it, like by landing. I mean, like the thing landing. You know
well,
what I
if
mean?
you're gonna drop it, if you're gonna drop something like a parachute drop, then the drone comes back, and I feel like that's better. But the problem is that then anytime the drone flies back, they could follow it to you. So, like if you were gonna do that
back to yourself.
No, well you like
you
it's
fly
an
back to a
expensive
different
drone.
location that you get it later.
Yeah, no. So what I would do, because you think about these things. Like you're like, what if I was a horrible person? How would I use my powers for evil? Like I think a lot of people, like as you're falling asleep at night, you have these thoughts. What I would do is I would like ditch it in a river or something, in a lake. I would like, drop the package and then like try to make the drone as unrecoverable as possible, so there's no evidence. I don't know. That's how it seems like to me. I mean, if you were really smart, you could probably do it with waypoints. You could probably do an autonomous waypoint mission. And basically hover over the court. Where the thing is, like, we're imagining you're just dropping it in the middle of a great big courtyard. Maybe that's not what they want. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's a good thing I'm a good and ethical person who would never do anything like that. I think $3,000 is low. I think it's low. But, I don't know. I probably have more to lose than some people. There's a new project out there, Blunty. Oh, man. I've been seeing it on Facebook. This thing... Oh, I found it. Amazing. This thing is going to be a... And I want to be really clear here. I like this project. I think this project is very cool. And I want to live in a world where this project exists. But at the same time, this is going to be like, this is a real, the horses have left the barn. The toothpaste is out of the tube. You're not going back moment. And I feel like there's a lot of potential for this to be used in very sketchy ways. This project is a new open source UAV 4G, 5G cellular base station. Basically, it lets you build a drone that you remote control over the internet via cellular. Or presumably Starlink would work too, although they don't think they mention that. And this is a thing that a few people have done. And it's very complicated to set up. And difficult. And now it's not. Well, realistically, it probably is. This is an open source project. This guy the reason I'm thinking about this is this guy recently did a post on Facebook where he's got a whole bunch of video and tutorials. And it's like, oh man. So you mean from anywhere in the world, I could just fly this drone anywhere I want with cellular connection? I don't see any way that could go badly. Anyway. I have real mixed feelings. This may not be the project. I'll never find it again because it's on Facebook and I don't. But this is a thing that has existed, but I get the impression that there's a new open source project that makes it way easier. Anyway, and I have mixed feelings about that. We got a $20 super chat from Ginger Sasquatch. 50 hours of sim time deep. I have goggles, a Sugon T21, a Whoop, and parts for a 3.5-inch inbone. I can't overstate how helpful your videos have been getting into the hobby. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad they've been helpful. The Ron Johnson says, I built your 3-inch drone kit as my first drone with Walksnail. What should I look for when trying to maximize range and penetration? What settings should I use? Turn the output power on the video transmitter up to max. And then some people feel like they get better range at 25 megabits per second compared to 50. It's lower video fidelity, but better range. Overlord. I picked your question just because I saw you're in the Discord, Overlord, and I appreciate you being a patron. What are your latest tricks to protect my antenna? The O3 antenna and the 3D print seem to break easily on your sub 250 build. Are you printing them out of TPU or are you printing them out of PLA? I'm going to be really surprised if you're printing them out of TPU and they're breaking. TPU tends to flex and not break. So print it out of TPU. And then if you want more durability, you can get an antenna for the O3 that's just a little whip antenna, and it's more durable than the plastic one. So you could just replace the antenna with the little whip antennas. Let me show you an example. So if we look at the BetaFPV Pavo Pico, no, I need the one that comes with the VTX. Can I see a picture of it? There we go. So if you look right here, do you see that they've replaced the antennas with just these little whips? They're far more durable. And the reduction in range is actually not as much as you would think. So that's how you can increase the durability of those antennas if you really want to. I'm sorry. Did I switch the scene and show you guys the Pavo Pico? And then I switched the scene back subconsciously? Because at this moment, I don't remember switching the scene. And I wonder if I just looked at the Pavo Pico and you guys didn't see it. I did, okay. I see, this frickin' Stream Deck is like frickin', it's like it's subconscious to me these days. David Molinatoro says, I'm developing my own flight controller, and I'm wondering if using a Raspberry Pi instead of the typical STM32 is the right way. After seeing Betaflight plans to support the Raspberry platform, I couldn't speak to the pros and cons of the different platforms. Presumably, the Raspberry Pi will have more processing power, and generally when people put a Raspberry Pi on a drone, it's because they want to do things like image processing. I knew a person... well, I didn't know him, but I knew of a person who was developing an image processing, basically companion computer using a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is not very sophisticated. It's not going to do high-end AI stuff, but it can do basic stuff, and it can do stuff like tracking an object, that's well within its capabilities, like identifying objects on screen. So a lot of times when people put a Raspberry Pi, that's what they want to do. The other thing a Raspberry Pi offers is much more sophisticated networking capability. So if you wanted to have more sophisticated, again, running a drone over the internet, you might have a Raspberry Pi, integrated into that to help with routing traffic, or it wouldn't literally be doing the routing, but I've known people who put a Raspberry Pi on a drone. To do something like that. Yeah.
Just to be clear, I think he's talking about designing an FC and using the RP2350 as the chip, the MCU, instead of an STM32F7 or F4.
Well, right. But presumably that would give access to some of the capabilities of a Raspberry Pi, right?
I think a lot of the benefit, though, you get is like that you're getting the whole board with it and all the stuff is included on it. But what I would say is, what I told him is go to the BetaFlight Discord and ask the devs what they think about it. Because, like, for instance, like something like STM32 has a bunch of peripherals in the code. And when you need to do things with the chip, you can call the peripherals. And there's like a peripheral library that you can use. When you change processors, you have to change the peripheral library. And so it depends on how built up that is and how familiar you are with it and how familiar the devs are with it and who's designing the firmware for it. That's also, like, important to know. So just something to consider, because I think that's a big issue that comes up with MCUs, is you have to work off of this, like, sort of thing. I think it just got introduced in September 2025, I think, when I looked, was when they added this MCU to Betaflight. So I'm not sure how supported it is.
Yeah, so I was surprised to hear that Betaflight was adding support for a Raspberry for MCU. Betaflight was like pulling teeth to get them to support the AT32, which is just kind of like a clone of the ST32, although they did, I think, have to write some drivers and stuff for it. So, like, I'm surprised that they've stuck to that STM32 for a long time. I'm hearing from David Moltor that it's a little bit more powerful than the M4 chip on an F405, which, so what's the point? What's the point then? If it's not that much more powerful, it's just a different chip. The devs said they want to use all cores and split the load. Raspberry, it's a multi-core chip, so they could, like, have the PID controller running on one core and peripherals running on another core, for example. It doesn't have serial I/O. Sounds like there's pros and cons. Well, I'm well out of my depth, so I guess I don't know. You should ask the devs. I think Blunty gave you good advice. Maybe you'll be the one who helps integrate it into the code. Bennett FPV says, it's official, you've left Rotor Riot. I noticed you weren't on the website anymore. Yeah, I guess I can address that. I never officially left Rotor Riot. For a couple reasons. It's been, I don't know, it has to have been 2 or 3 years since I was last in a Rotor Riot video. I'm trying to think what the last one that I, like, am sure, like, for example, one of the last ones I definitely remember doing is 10 FPV trends that died.
Drew,
This was 5 years ago. I'm sure I must have done one since then. Let's see what happens if I go to the Rotor Riot. What have they been up to? How drone motors are made. Rampage 2025. Rampage 2025. Another exploding battery video. I do one of these every few years. The Kai Cenat video. Yeah, okay. 5 months ago. Yeah. So I wonder, sorry, just if I search for Bardwell 6 years ago, 7 years ago, how do I sort by 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago? Wow. 2 years ago. Okay. There we go. 2 years ago. No, that's my problem. I do remember this one. Yes, okay, so I knew I'd find one more recent. April 2023, so almost 3 years ago. So, yeah, that's about right. It's been 2 or 3 years since I was out there, and I never really, was like, I'm done with that. I just got busy with other things, and when they would be like, hey, we're going to shoot, it seemed like the answer was always, I got something else that week, or just like, nah, you know. So, and I always was like, oh, well, I'm friends with them. I still consider them friends, Although I'm not as connected with the sort of new generation that came in after I was on the way out. So I haven't spent as much time hanging out with them. I went to Rampage. I went to Rampage 2 years ago for sure. And I must have been in videos then. I did that video with, anyway, it doesn't matter. But recently I went to them and I said, hey guys, it's been a long time. I think it's time that, like, I'm not going to make a big announcement why I left Rotor Riot, because that's not how it is. But I think it's time I wasn't, like, I'm not really a cast member in any sense. Yeah, the stage dive. What year was that? What year was the stage dive, Joseph Dahari? Anyway, so a few months ago I said, hey, what do you want to do? You'd probably take me off the website. Especially because of some of the, and I'll be careful with my wording here, like some of the publicity Rotor Riot has been getting for some of the things that Unusual Machines and Rotor Riot has been doing in the military space. And I want to be careful with my words because I don't want to give the impression that I'm, like, categorically opposed to that. I'm not. I know that some people are. They think it's bad for the hobby. They think, you know, they're like, how dare they? And it's like, yeah, I know people who are purist hobbyists who are like, anybody who commercializes the hobby or anybody who's drones as weapons is not my friend. And I understand that position. I know people who are in the military who are like, I love drones. I like racing drones. Why wouldn't I also use drones for my day job? And I have seen the effect that drones have in Ukraine and other places around the world. And, you know, if you believe that service members should have the ability to protect themselves, then they should have the tools that allow them to do that effectively. You know? So, like, I feel like there's a lot of different sides to it, is my point. But if somebody who has my name on their website is doing things that generate a huge amount of bad publicity, like, I want to generate my own bad publicity. See what I'm saying? I'm not opposed to doing things that generate bad publicity, but I don't like it when somebody who I have nothing to do with releases a press release and then everybody's like, rah, 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 and then they turn on me. And I'm like, whoa, I wasn't even there. If I had been there, I might have agreed with that decision, but I wasn't and I didn't. So, you know what I mean? Anyway. So, I guess my point is that as long, I hadn't been in a Rotor Riot video in a long time, but I had kind of just like, yeah, keep my name on your website, whatever, I don't care. But that had kind of petered out. And now they're doing things that are generating bad publicity, bad press, and blowback. And then people are saying, Bardwell needs to this, Bardwell that. And I'm like, guys, I have nothing to do with this. They're just doing their thing over there. And I was like, well, okay. If I'm going to, I'm going to do my thing. I'll do something that will piss you off, and then you'll be mad at me, but at least I will have presumably reaped some benefit from it. See what I mean? All right. That's a tough one, Ciati. Ciati, I mean, I don't know how deep down this, let's get into the end of the night, whatever. There's a big difference, and I try really hard to keep this a mostly politics-free zone. So I'm not going to use your exact wording. But, like, you think about somebody who joined the military 10 years ago, right? And then, as a part of signing up for the military, you understand that sometimes you'll agree with some of the things the administration does, sometimes you won't. And you bought the ticket, take the ride. You have to make the best of it. You look at a company like Rotor Riot, who started working Rotor Riot, Red Cat, Unusual Machines, they started working toward government contracts, presumably with good intentions, although also with the intention of making money. You know, they've invested in it, right? And then a new administration comes in, and maybe like Ciati, I know you don't. You're heartily opposed. I had somebody reach out to me, Ciati. He was on my Patreon, and he said, I unsubbed from Ciati's Patreon because I don't like his political views and I don't like how he talks on Livestream. And I'm glad you don't do that. And I went, mm-hmm. And I will continue to not do that. But like, you know, maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But like if you spent 5 years building a company, investing money, you bought a factory, you bought a warehouse, and your intention was to, you know, whatever, sell drones to the government. Then the government comes in and suddenly you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's an easy decision to make. I certainly have a lot of respect for people who say, I'm not okay with this, I'm out. Like, that's a bold and brave decision, especially when it comes with personal cost. But I also, like, there's people who say, I'm going to try to make the best of this situation. And then there's people who say, I'm going to get rich and I don't give a fuck who I sell to. And, you know, fuck those people. Anyway, I guess it's complicated. It's complicated. It's easy for somebody whose livelihood doesn't depend on selling products to the military or the government to say to someone whose livelihood does depend on that, hey, you should stop doing that. What? Oh, great. So now I'm homeless. Well, maybe that's okay. I don't know. It's not that simple. Obviously.
I mean, that's a real, like, they decided to get into the industry.
So that's fair. And like I said, you know, when you sign up, that there's a chance that you might be put in a position where you're asked to do something that you don't agree with by someone who has power over you. And then you have to be prepared with the sort of ethical, moral fallout of that. I think is what you're saying. Sorry, Blinty, I cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just say like, oh, I was doing it and now you don't like it, I can't stop. Like you decided to get into it. You developed the company. You developed the skill set. Like all those things happen. Like you made the decisions you made. Like
yes,
you know.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to carry too much water for Rotor Riot, Unusual Machines, etc. They can certainly speak for themselves. But I guess the reason I say that is like I know FPV hobbyists who are absolutely opposed to any sort of commercialization, militarization, whatever, of drones. And I know FPV hobbyists who are not so much on the sort of peace and love side of the equation and who I don't know, who see it a little, they feel stuck. I think some of them feel stuck. And I feel for it. I feel for them. Anyway, but you're right. It's a cop-out to say, well, if I don't keep, I'm not going to make up a horrible example. If I don't keep doing this morally my livelihood depends on me doing this morally repugnant thing, so I guess I have to keep doing it. No, like you can stop doing it. You can make other decisions. Yeah, that's valid. That's valid. I don't know. I'm like, what do you do? I think this is a real question. Now it's not a question we're going to answer on this live stream, but it's like, what do people in the military do? Because this is not a new thing. Like you signed up for the military. The president is someone you politically agree with, and he says, we're going to go and we're going to help the poor people of such and such a country by bringing them food and water. Oh, I like that. I'm going to go do that. And then there's an election and now we have a new president. And the president says, we're going to go over to this country and we're going to drop a lot of bombs on people. And you're like, oh, I don't like that. What do you do? Do you just some people in Vietnam were conscientious objectors. Some of them went to like prison, didn't they? I don't know. Ugh. How do you address this? The people who are currently on active duty are not going to say. They're certainly not going to say publicly. Yeah. I mean, it could go the other way. You could be a person who signed up, and the president was like, "Let's go bomb people," and you were like, "Yes, I want to bomb people." And then a different president got elected, and he was like, "Today we're going to stop bombing people," and you were like, "Oh, I don't like this guy." You could go both ways. I don't know. If the answer is, as Doom Paint says, you shut up and do what you're told, I don't know if I want to live in that world. Like, I want to live in a world where people have sort of moral code, but then I think it gets very messy. Because, like, yeah, I think it gets messy. Anyway, that's a topic I could say more on that topic, but I think I won't, because I think well, number one, we're running out of time, and number two, I just think it's not the right topic to get into right now. I wouldn't want to, Ciati, I wouldn't want to lose any patrons by expressing too many political views here on my stream. Okay. Oh, gracious. Excuse me. I got the hiccups tonight. Thank you guys. I'm only vaguely scanning the chat, but it does seem like the chat has not descended into political BS and is mostly like people are talking about the topic in mostly sort of respectful and intelligent ways. And I'm happy. I'm happy about that. Blunty, you maybe... I don't see a lot of hidden comments, so I'm going to guess... Yeah, I'm going to guess you guys did a good job. So
at some point, when you start talking about it, there's nothing I can do. That's what I think about it.
I know.
You can
right.
stop when you want to stop, and otherwise I'll just let it go until until you stop.
But I don't see a lot of the kind of comments that would upset
forth
me.
In chat. There's people insulting each other. It's happened multiple times, but I'm not gonna. It's just. I don't know. You invite it, so there's nothing. I feel like it's weird to police it. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would police some of it. If anybody said something I disagreed with politically, I would ban them from the channel. No, I'm joking. Anyway. All right. Let's see here. I don't like any of these questions. Shout out to EDOC for placing second in Pro Class at Whooptopia this weekend. Yes! EDOC. Shout out to EDOC. Is there a reason making your own DJI-esque drones with optical flow modules, Caddx gimbal, etc. isn't more mainstream? Two reasons, Simmerjack. Number one, it's hard and complicated. It's way harder than you think to get it actually working. I say this as somebody who has spent... today, I was struggling with a drone, trying to get the compass to work right, to get position hold working. Just position hold. Good old position hold, and the compass was screwing up, and I had all kinds of problems. And it's like, it's just position hold. DJI RG-Pilot can do this. It was an INAV drone. RG-Pilot can do this all day. Why is this not working? F you. So, like, when you set out to do a DJI-esque drone, you say, oh, DJI-esque drone with optical flow and gimbal. Like, good luck. You're going to spend weeks working on this stupid thing, and when you get it done, it's still not going to be as good as a DJI drone. So part of the reason is that it's hard, and your result is not good. So, yeah. That's, you should just believe, if you want a DJI drone, just buy a DJI drone. You are not going to make anything better. You are not going to save money. The only reason to try to make your own is if you want the challenge. So. Oh my goodness. Oh. Bellur, if you were at minus 100 dBm at 200 meters, the first thing I would do is I would check your antennas aren't damaged. Yeah. Sunshine, I am intrigued by Meshtastic. Somebody showed me a piece of software where basically if you take a Meshtastic radio, it's a little Meshtastic like puck, and it has a GPS unit on it, or you can connect it to your phone. And basically you would like put a drone up in the air with a radio on it, and then it would network all the Meshtastic radios so that like over like, I don't know where you would do this, like a camping event, I don't know, out in the woods, you could see where everybody was like on a tablet using these pucks. It's very, very, very interesting little technology. It may not even have been Meshtastic, but I think it was. Yeah. The reason we were talking about it is that we were talking about ways to recover your drone if you lose your drone. And one of the things he was like, well, maybe you could put one of these pucks on it and use this as a supplemental radio for passing location data. Oh, maybe this. Maybe it was this. Card tracker for Meshtastic. That sure sounds like it. It's a high-performance tracker, small as a credit card. LR1110. GPS module, high-precision, low-power positioning, $40. There you go. Yeah. Basically, you could see on a map where each of all the people were, all the devices, all the drones. You could just see it on a map. It was pretty cool. It's not an AirTag killer at this size. Like, nice try. Slick. Are my specs good? Emax Eco 2 1300 kV. What size props for 1300 kV? Better be 7-inch. DJI O4 Air Unit Gepard C Mark IV 7-inch. Yes! M100 Pro HLRC GPS SpeedyB F405 stack. Yeah. I think that 3500 6S, it's okay. That's okay. You're probably going to want a bigger battery. If you have 1300 kV motors, you're probably going for flight time. You're probably going to want a bigger battery. And then I'm not 100% sure I would trust the SpeedyB ESC on a 7-inch build. It'll probably be fine, but Pacific Source says there's a new INAV update out for compass issues. Take a look. Pacific Source, I will kiss you on the mouth. Are you for real? I will kiss you on the mouth. INAV 901. Fixed position of for improved GPS hold, navigation, and accuracy. Shut your got. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't sound like any of the other No, those aren't the problems I was having. I think no, I don't want to see that. I don't think that's exactly the problems I was having. That's pretty. I'm gonna ew, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Delete. Pacific Source, I don't know if that's what you were talking about, but Race FPV says, I thought all DJI drones were banned, but I see tons of them on Amazon. No. DJI is on the covered entities list, which means new DJI drones cannot get FCC approval. Existing drones that already have FCC approval are fine and can still be sold. Daewoo, thank you for a $10 super chat. I have a TBS Unify Pro32 and a TBS Unify Pro HV. One has an internal mic, and the other you have to wire up an AGC mic. Is the Pro32's mic the same mic, only internal? I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I don't think the Unify Pro's mic has AGC, though, automatic gain control. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I would generally prefer to get a VTX with a built-in mic, just because wiring up an external mic is a pain in the butt. I'm looking for the loudest mic for live audio. No, you don't want the loudest mic, because you want the mic to turn its gain down because the wind is so damn loud. I recently bought the G2 goggles. Now I have a question. Should I buy the G4 later, or could I live with the Vista 03 and 04 lineup? The G4 don't exist. The G4 don't exist. How can I tell you whether you should buy the G4 when they don't exist yet?
I said the same thing to him in chat. He said he meant G3.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm not crazy though. No, if you own the G2 and you're happy with the G2, you just bought the G2, don't buy the G3. If you wanted the G3, you should have bought them instead of the G2. Now you have the G2. I'm not sure I could, you definitely can't justify immediately reselling them or buying another set of goggles. The correct answer is, hey, dummy. You should have bought the G3 in the first place. Vista 03, 04. Like, you get all of the same video transmitters with the G2 and the G4. In fact, or the G3. In fact, you also get the Vista. The only things you don't get are race mode and 60 megabit per second, which is not nothing. That's a decent answer. That's a good answer. Good answer. Goggles 2 has wider field of view. That is... I think that's accurate. Oh, good point. Wow. You don't need me anymore with plenty. This is a pretty solid summary.
Just to remind you, the reason this is a solid summary is because you can vet it.
I know.
It's only helpful because you know it's not lying to you. But if a user looks this up and it lies to them, they don't know if it lies to them, so they make a decision that's based on nothing.
This is dumb.
It's just not useful. Sorry.
This is useless. Oh, yeah. It's missing some things. But don't upgrade just for the sake of it. The screens are the same. Did it mention the 60 megabit per second mode? Yeah, it does. Yeah. That's solid. I love how serious it is. At no point does it go, you're trolling me, right? It's like, I'm assessing the impact of this user's horribly deformed lump. Precise lump location mapping. The critical test. Where is the lump? Oh my God. Oh, we're using so much water right now. Do not buy the goggles 3. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Oh my God. No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. All right, folks. That's going to do it for the stream. We'll see you next weekend. Oh my God. I'll see you next weekend. I want to tell it to generate a picture of my lump. Hang on. Let's waste some more. Let's waste some more. Let's waste some more energy. Oh my God. Please do it. 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 Please generate a picture of me with a giant lump on my forehead wearing the goggles 3. Oh my God. I love the feedback on everyone. That tells it what it's doing. Okay. That's so much for the rainforest. Alrighty, guys. Good night, everybody. I'll see you next Sunday. Have a great stream, Siati. I'm out.
Later.
You glad it's over,
Bye.
Plenty? Is this your favorite stream ever?
Yeah, you